Hello. Before this video begins, I would like to warn you viewers that the Blood and Gore DLC was active in this video, so it may get a bit graphic and brutal. So viewer discretion is advised because it may not be for everyone. Now that that's out of the way, we can begin. Hello and welcome to today's episode. Today we play Rome 2. I will show you a replay from one of my campaigns. We are playing as Pompey's Rome. Our town is being attacked by a local tribe. I have no nearby armies, so my garrison must hold out all alone, unless they wish to suffer under the tribe's rule. We may be outnumbered, but we have better equipment and me as the commander. Throughout this video, you will learn how I fought against such odds. In my next video, this Sunday, I will go over how to massacre enemies in unfortified town assault defenses, as multiple factions and not just the Romans. So let's get right into it.
Square formation!
Alright, so the replay has started. So before the actual battle itself starts, well, we're going to have the time going, we're going to put it at half speed. I'm going to show you what we have. We have a few legionary cohorts holding position here. So I've put 2 units in the center and 1 unit on the right side. Now I also have 2 plebs or peasant units that are going to be on the left side. Now I put my weakest units on the left side because I see that the enemy forces are coming from the center and right. So it is very unlikely that they will go to the left, especially when there are openings they can easily access on the center and right side. Next, I decided to put my skirmishers, which include the velites and archers, into putting them behind my legionaries. Now, the purpose of this was to keep them safe from enemy units, which include cavalry, infantry, and archers of their own. But it was also so we could fire over the heads of our men into the enemy ranks, or instead what we could do is to go around our units and then hit them in the back while they're distracted while engaging our legionaries. I put my general unit behind the rest of my units because it has my general, and I don't want him to die because the morale will quickly deplete and suffer, so we need to keep him as safe as possible. But throughout this battle, I will engage him in combat when it is necessary to achieve victory. Now finally, before the enemy arrives, we're going to notice that I put some vigiles on the complete southern side, and that's because I don't expect any resistance in that area, and it's also just an extra measure of protection. So as you see, they're first sending down their cavalry down the center and right side. Let's see how this goes for them. Legionaries are getting ready. Oh. And the cavalry is forced to back away. Let's look over here what they're gonna do. Cavalry is charging down. And they start getting hit, but before the Romans can fully unleash their power, the cavalry charges through their ranks. So we're going to speed up time now. And as you see, the units in the center have been absolutely massacred and defeated very quickly. But here in the center, on the right side I mean, what we are trying to do is we're trying to organize our troops in such a way that we occupy or distract the majority of the enemy units. This forces them to go down and fight here instead of going around and taking out our most vulnerable units. Now as you see, what I'm trying to do with these levies here is I'm just trying to maneuver them so they have an easier time accessing the weak points of my enemy. As you see behind our legionaries, there would be a lot of friendly fire. But here, beside them, they have an easy access right into where the enemy is positioned. So it is easy for them to just absolutely massacre them.
Advance at speed!
And now the majority of the enemy force seems to be going down the right side, which is pretty bad because we only have one legionary cohort there, while in the center, where there's still some resistance or some opposition, we have 2 units, but they won't be fighting as hard. And as you see, I continue moving my skirmishers around to flank around to the side and behind my enemy, so they can have an easier access with less friendly fire and more damage. I've also seen that since the enemy is sending so many units to try and stop us, I'm going to send in my general's unit to assist in holding the line. If we go back here to the center, we see that we've engaged in hand-to-hand combat as well. Now what I'm doing here is, because I see extra units that can move in, I'm trying to keep this integrity, this structure here. I'm keeping them in a straight line instead of sending them in to assist. This forces the enemy to shoot into our shield instead of our men. And here, as you see, I've completely moved my skirmishers behind the enemy force. This allows me to have an easy access to the weakest point of the enemy force, and with the smallest risk of friendly fire. Now what I'm doing is having my legionary cohort and general's unit, which is the Evocati cohort, we're having them just push the enemy into the center, or at least push some of them towards the skirmishers. This allows us to get some extra room for movement of our skirmishers around for better access to the enemy weak points, but it also pushes the enemy in such a way that lowers their morale, makes them more vulnerable, and gives our skirmishers an advantage. Now in the center here, I've decided to move my units up to start chasing the enemy. Now this is because the majority of them have started routing by now, so I just want to chase them down. Since this is a campaign battle, I want to inflict as much damage as possible, and seeing how many soldiers have come to face us here today, I consider victory quite far away, so I'm just going to do as much damage as possible. But as you may have also noticed, I'm having my peasants, the plebs, go around the left side. Now the purpose of this is to assist in the chasing down of the enemy units, but also so we can completely surround the enemy units so they have no escape. This will lower their morale heavily and absolutely decrease their chances of victory. And even if they end up winning somehow, because of their just great numbers, we'll at least get some good damage in. So as you see, I see that not all of the enemy units that were fighting in the center have routed yet. So I'm going to have one of my legionary units continue chasing them, because I'm worried to not lose my plebs, because I want to keep as many men alive, so if I somehow manage to win this battle, I still have something that survives and can continue holding a garrison in case any more attacks come. So I'm sending one legionary unit to assist in chasing down and take down any units that aren't completely routing, and then one more unit to go around and hit the enemy force from the back. Just like that. And this is very effective. It makes the enemy a compact position, which makes them very uncomfortable. They have nowhere to escape, and they are completely surrounded. Buildings block the left and right side, and legionaries, soldiers, are blocking them. They're slashing and thrashing, and there's nothing they can do. There's no escape possible. And as you see, I've also begun moving some of my skirmishers to the right side so they can also flank around and assist. But I've stopped moving them, seeing the majority of the enemy army is routing by now. For some reason, the legionaries don't want to kill them, which is going to be annoying later on in the campaign, letting all of those men escape. But the battle is not won yet. Although the odds are quite favorable, the enemy can still return, and their general is still standing. So I send in the remaining legionary units that are still here, and the velites and skirmishers that have run out of ammunition by now, to assist in taking out the enemy general. Now, as you can see, there's been an absolute massacre here. Not only have the legionaries pushed them aside and easily won, Well, not easily, but they've won with quite the damage inflicted. But we've also had our velites quickly throw above the heads of our men or into the backs of the enemy soldiers, which was absolutely devastating. So, I know that all situations won't be this perfect. You won't have those very strong units. You won't have skirmishers. You might not get this lucky. The enemy might send units to the places where you are unprepared. Things might not go the way you planned. That's very common in these battles. But you have to never give up. No matter how bad it is, you can't ever give up. And in a video I'm planning to post in a couple of days, that's going to be very relevant, very showing that you should never give up. Because if you don't give up, victory will be much more likely, no matter how much the odds are against you. Just like here, I mean, it was either a full flag or nearly a full flag, and we held off with this extremely small garrison. Now the battle is over, not basically over. It is over. Now what we're just doing is just chasing them down because we don't want them coming back to fight us again, because we really got lucky here with all of that damage. So in general, what you want to do in these battles is have your strongest units block up and hold a front line where you expect the majority of the enemy forces to come through, or at least where the enemy is originally heading towards. This might end up turning wrong and you'll just have to maneuver them to a different position. Or if they do as you predicted, it could be very successful, as was here. We saw them over there to the right side and center, so we put our main troops in the right and center, and we turned out very lucky. Now, as you may have noticed in the beginning of the video, I had my legionary unit like this in a straight line instead of like this, because I was worried that because they had such a long line of units, they could easily flank around here. So you have to be ready for as much as possible. So in general, like I was saying, you want to have your strongest units form a front line to hold out against the enemy for as much damage as possible. Then what you want to do is, if you have skirmishers, it's best to either keep them behind your front line or beside it, so you can shoot over the heads of your men, or if you have slingers or other units that can't really do that or will cause heavy friendly fire, you can try to maneuver them, as I did, around the enemy and then shoot them in the back or other vulnerable places. And then you want to finish off and put them in the coffin for good. You're going to want to send a few units, maybe it's cavalry, maybe it's infantry, maybe it's just plebs like I was sending, because I didn't expect my legionaries to break through. I thought they were going to keep holding for another few minutes. So just send whatever you have to surround the enemy forces. Even if you take heavy casualties, it will diminish their morale very quickly. As you saw, as soon as this one unit of legionaries hit from the back, it was just one unit, they were greatly outnumbered, and if time kept going, we probably wouldn't have survived. But as you saw, that one unit was absolutely devastating. They just crushed it. They charged in, and that hit to the enemy back was devastating. They didn't know what to do because you're in a compacted area. You have no escape. You're fighting in the front, and all of a sudden, you're charged from the back. What are you going to do? Are you going to keep fighting against a force that you're already losing against? Or are you going to start routing and have a possible chance of escape instead of just standing there, waiting to be slaughtered? So, they retreated. And as we see, this ended up being a heroic victory, because it really was heroic. We were basically the underdogs. Although we had great equipment, and players are better than AI, against such numbers, it was a really difficult battle. I would like to thank you all for watching, and I hope this video was helpful. I know this isn't the usual kind of video that I make, but I think this would also be helpful. As I mentioned earlier in the video, my next video, which is this Sunday, is going to be reviewing all the unfortified town assault defenses, how you can hold out as multiple factions, not just the Romans as we demonstrated here. And I'm going to try out multiple units. I'm going to try and... I know I won't be able to cover every single situation with every single unit because I'm trying to keep my videos about 20 minutes long, not only for your entertainment and also for them to take up less time for you to watch, but also because it is impossible to go over all of these situations in a single video. That video would probably be hours long. So I'm just going to be in general the most common units that you would have in an unfortified town assault defense, which are just the basic garrison. And we're going to try and hold off big armies like here, like a full stack, a big army. Now, they may come more heavily armored. This I just got lucky because I was fighting in Spain with my troops and I had to move my army away, and I was in the middle of a big conflict. Luckily, although it was a full stack, it wasn't a very heavily armored one. It was just basically spearmen and nothing that's too difficult to hold out against, especially when you have legionaries. So in this case we got lucky, but in other cases, when you're less lucky, when you have worse armor and worse advantages, and everything's just terrible, I'll try to go over those kind of situations as well, so you don't only see the situations where you're most likely to win or you're quite likely to win because of this slight advantage that you have, although they outnumber you. But we're also going to go over situations where most of the odds, if not all of the odds, are against you. Well, that's enough of me talking for one day. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it was helpful for you in beating, or at least learning how to beat these unfortified town assaults while defending on your own in Rome 2. As always, remember to like and subscribe and leave your opinions and comments in the comments section so I know what you want to see next, or just your basic opinions of what you thought this video was and how it went. Do you want me to do it slightly differently? Do you want me to go over different topics? Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you watching the next episode.